So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Michael at the Abundant Yogi, and with me today is Liana Elizabeth. She is a raw foodist, primarily, well, a raw fruit person for 12 years plus. She's a channel dancer. She's a yogi. She's a water fasting aficionado and a guide as well, and a holistic health coach. So, is there anything you'd like to add to that, Liana?
You pretty much summarized all of it. Yeah, I've been in the coaching industry for since pretty much since I was 16 years old. So all of my life, pretty much. So yeah, thank you for
Great.
the introduction.
No, so listen, pleasure to be here. I'm happy that you're joining me. We've been meaning to make this happen, so
Yes.
excited. And I'm sure this will be one of many. So, Leanna, how did this journey for you kind of begin? I mean, how did this? Oh, I forgot the one other thing. She's a rollerblading champion. No,
Oh
roller
yeah,
skating. Well,
true.
roller skating champion as well.
Yeah.
So that's a first for me. I've never met a roller skating champion, so
Yeah.
that's exciting. Um, so let's go to the beginning for you. When did this journey into health and wellness begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I To be honest with you, I have been deeply passionate about health all my life. I just came out naturally caring about that even at a young age, and I think it's because I was an athlete from such a young age. I began skating, roller skating, when I was 8. So I was into physical fitness and training at the gym and doing cross training and ballroom dance lessons and I was not in the realms of what we're going to talk about today in terms of raw food and fasting. It took me a while to discover that, but I always was conscientious of what I ate because being a competitive artistic skater and a dancer, you're wearing these tiny little costumes and you want to look the part. So I was like aware of that before most children are. And so yeah, I started to eat, cleaner than most at a young age. But I still developed. I developed IBS, severe IBS, Crohn's, not Crohn's, but colitis, ulcerative colitis, which is similar to Crohn's. And then yeah, with all the medications that they put me on to manage those conditions, along with the birth control that I was on, and these horrific drugs, and then I ended up developing depression and anxiety and panic disorder, and then I was on medications for those things. And so this concoction of drugs just took me out. And so then eventually I found myself practicing a plant based diet. I went
Hmm.
vegan 17 and a half years ago. And
Wow.
right around the time I began my yogic journey and my spiritual path,
Hmm. Hmm.
and started meditating, and then I didn't recover or get off all of the drugs fully for a few years. It took me time, and then I discovered raw food, and raw food was like another level of healing. I was getting more and more clean going in this direction, and then the thing though is I was still scraping the intestines with bowel movements, and I needed to fully abstain from food for a while, and then I began my fasting journey, and then I had a full recovery, and I got off all medications, and yeah, I've been very healthy and thriving ever since, and yeah.
So you went on a plant-based diet about 17 years ago, but you've been raw for 12 plus, and fruit primarily. My understanding is, what was the transition? How did that transition come about for you?
Yeah, so going from plant based to raw, that transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went vegan initially because I it was for health reasons. Initially going plant based, I watched I saw my older sister went vegan, and she had been vegan for like 2 years, and I thought she was kind of crazy because my family was born and raised eating meat, pretty traditional American family, and I was eating high protein at the time, being an athlete. So I thought she was kind of crazy, but then she sent me this video by Dr. Clapper. If you've seen
Oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Clapper, yeah, he's one of the OGs in the plant based world,
Yep.
and he's famous for looking inside of the arteries of his patients and noticing the
Hmm.
like the stickiness of the blood and like the fat that literally develops within the vial of blood, when they do a sample. And so I saw that, and I was just like, I've always been a soul where I don't need to like go and research things like crazy. Like I just knew I was like, this is the truth.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
I just went vegan literally overnight. And I did it with my mother. My mom watched the same videos. So my mom, my sister, and I all became vegan. Yeah, 17 and a half years ago. And I'm still fully vegan. My sister's kind of, and my mom is back to meat now.
Right.
However, then you know, with the raw transition, I came across another video that my boyfriend at the time sent to me because he's like, maybe you should think about this. He sent me a video by Fully Raw Christina and about eating
Okay. Yeah.
healing yourself with fruit. And I saw that, and again, it was another big light bulb moment. And I was like, we're not meant to be eating cooked food. It's like, duh, like all of nature is eating, they're all 100% raw foodists. Like, why are we as humans like cooking our food and creating all these toxic compounds? Like, and of course, like I did all the research and I went in deep and like, you know, with my passion of health coaching and wanting to heal myself, like I spent hours and hours and hours researching in the databases within my grad school college, you know, and I was just pulling all these articles and like and I was trying to prove to myself like because I had so many distorted belief systems, you know, so I was proving to myself that I could do this and B I can sustain it, you know, but I made the switch before embarking on that journey of discovery. But with all that knowledge and depth of understanding, you know, it's making me a powerful coach today. So
Oh, that's fantastic. So I'm assuming that because you're living in Costa Rica at the moment,
yeah,
how long have you been in Costa Rica?
I've been here for 4.5 years, but
Okay.
I've been traveling back and forth to Costa Rica for about 8 years. I was going
Oh,
to
8 years.
Tanglewood Wellness Center, which is no longer operating, but that's where I went to do a lot of my water fasting to really
Yeah, I
make
want to get into
awareness.
that. I wanted to
Yeah.
get that as we move along. So you were eating raw while still living in the United States. Is that sort of correct? Started
Yeah, and
that journey
I
there.
actually I began my raw journey when I was living in Israel. So
Oh, okay.
I was living in Jerusalem. I was there for 8 years, and that's where I went through my spiritual awakening in the Holy Land, of all places. It's just the energy there is so powerful to yeah, to awaken souls, and so I went through my powerful transformation there, and then I went back to the States for a while. So I've been raw vegan. Also, I spent a bit of time in Europe, so I've been raw vegan around the world, and mostly in more cold northern climates. I mean, you think Israel's just hot and sunny, but actually in
Right.
Jerusalem it gets really cold. It snows sometimes in winter, not all the time, but
So yeah. So what prompted or moved you into the fasting realm, specifically water fasting?
what prompted me was I wasn't well yet. I wasn't digesting my food. Like I had been raw
Hmm.
vegan for 3 years, and I knew I wasn't digesting well with the conditions that I had, you know, because I was still having symptoms. I was afraid to
Hmm.
get off my medications because of the symptoms. And yeah, things just were not, they were looking how they went in, you know, when they'd pass out of the body. My body wasn't processing my food. And I went through like a healing crisis. I got very thin. It was really hard for me to keep weight on. A lot of people speak to this, and I think it's also the condition that I had, you know, being an intestinal disease. Yeah, I was too thin and struggling, not digesting well, and so I knew I needed to abstain. And I came across videos of Lauren Lockman and many other fasting practitioners, Alan Goldhammer, and yeah, even some that I won't name today because I'm not really big on following them anymore. Because
Right.
I felt like some of the teachings like led me down a dark path with it. But yeah,
Hmm.
there were several people that I was tuning in with and learning from, and then I began my fasting journey.
So I know because we're more familiar here in this household with Goldhammer because Julie has gone down and worked with him, and
Oh, at True North.
yeah, at True North. Now I know of Lorne and the work he's done. So was that what prompted you to go to Costa Rica originally? Was to go to Tanglewood?
Yes. Yeah, and
Okay.
then once being here, I mean, fasting is going to heal you, but the frequency of this land and the quality of the produce is
Right.
another level. I mean, being in the tropics and just being in this environment alone, I see it all the time. People come down here and they might not even change a dang thing about their a darn thing about their diet or the lifestyle, but just being in this environment is healing. And so I felt that
Right.
regeneration, and I'm very sensitive energetically and to the frequencies of nature. I actually grew up. I grew up in the woods in Washington State, so I'm used to being immersed in nature. So yeah, coming down to the jungle, the high frequency here, um, yeah, it was very enticing for me to make the full move then. And I mean, once I tasted the fruit, like I didn't want to go back to the grocery store papayas that are shipped in from who knows where, and they have no flavor, and oh my gosh, and they take forever to ripen. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's often very hard to find good papayas,
Oh,
so
yeah, but here they're
yeah.
literally falling off the trees.
Right, exactly.
I'm,
So you ended up going originally to Tanglewood as a participant, right?
yeah.
And but you did end up working there, did you not? I mean, and being a water fasting coach, is that correct?
I was working with Lauren. I wasn't helping him with his programming, with coaching clients, but I was working with him on the sidelines, developing various types of retreats and festivals, fruit festivals, and uh,
Okay.
and some of the things happened, and some of the things didn't happen. But yeah, I was working with him for a few years, and yeah, I consider him to be an ally in the journey. I don't agree with all of his methodologies because some of what he teaches was part, and we can get more into my story is part of what led me, to struggle with my health. But for the
Mhm.
most part, I do think that yeah, his methodologies work, and I'm following similar ones. So
Okay. So let's dive into a little bit of the water fasting for you. So, because everybody who's going to be watching this is not a faster or hasn't fasted, and so do you want to get into sort of from your perspective, the benefits of water fasting, and in particular, because people do a 3 day water, some people do a 24-hour fast, some people do a 48-hour fast, some people do a 3 day fast. Uh, I'm very curious from your point of view of one, where do you think people should start? And
mhm.
at what point in time do you think they need to be supervised?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, I mean, people could easily manage a 1, 2, or 3 day water fast, no problem. Most people can do that.
Right.
If you think about it, in our life experience, there's been moments when we've gotten sick from the flu, and we've maybe had a surgery, maybe some dental surgery, we can't chew, whatever it is, wisdom teeth removed. So people have had various experiences in their life where it's not that challenging mentally and emotionally and physically to pull off. But when we start to get past the point of about 7 days, that's when supervision is needed.
Right.
Because yeah, then things can start to come up where, for a lot of people, they don't understand that they're experiencing detox, and they also
Mhm.
don't know how to manage the fast properly. And having guidance is so key because it keeps you safe and it keeps you also um, like held in the container. Because a lot of people will quit.
Mhm.
They'll experience a little bit of discomfort and they'll quit. Or they can hurt themselves. And that's part of my story is in my initial beginning stages of diving into water fasting. I ended up in the hospital and I actually passed away several times. And so we can talk about that
Oh,
in the interview too.
all right.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a proponent of people seeking out guidance if it's going to a center or working with a coach. I know I coach people. I believe you do too in water fasting as well, and it's absolutely essential. It's not something that we should be embarking on alone. But again, just to emphasize, like after about 7 days, that's when you definitely want to have guidance. And anything that's extended, I consider an extended fast to be 10 days or more. So
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. These are all extended fasts. And I guide people up to
Right.
42 days.
because I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Lauren advocates a 21-day fast as kind of the optimum scenario. Is that correct or not?
Yeah, yeah, 21's common, but I think his most popular is 26 or maybe even 28
Oh,
days.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like it's essentially like a whole month of fasting, 4 weeks of fasting, and then a week of refeed.
Right. Right. So for the people again here who are not all that familiar with fasting, would you mind, from your perspective, again, going through what you feel are the benefits of water fasting and what happens on that journey, whether it even be, let's say from a journey of 3 days moving to three, somebody who's fasting for a 3 day to 7 day period.
A short water fast.
Yeah.
Well, a short water fast, you're not going to accomplish all that much. You're going to,
Okay.
I mean, because the what we're really trying to accomplish with because I'm speaking about therapeutic fasting. That's what I
Right.
guide people in. It's extended. It's extended fasting, and in that effort, in that length, we're getting into cellular autophagy. We're getting into lengthening of telomeres in our DNA. We're getting even our organs cleaned out. So it's not just a
Hmm.
matter of losing physical weight. It is like
Hmm.
a deep internal cellular regeneration that's occurring. In all the tissues and organs of the body, and
Right.
and so much of what people have been plagued with all their life, like various aches and pains, maybe poor eyesight, maybe they've lost some height, their spine has shrunk down, maybe they have some injuries that are still hurting. It's amazing to see what can heal when we abstain from food for extended periods of time. And I've seen
Right.
this with clients. I've seen this with people at the fasting center that I was alongside each time, within myself, and you can't even fully anticipate what those things are. But the body, when it's given the opportunity, will regenerate. But with a short fast, I would say the biggest benefit is that you get a little bit of a system clean out in terms of what's in the guts. You don't get much deeper than that. With a 3 to 7 day fast, you're going to have like a break in digestion, and you're gonna stop going to the bathroom maybe for a few days if you're not totally backed up. I've had clients that are very backed up and they literally have bowel movements every single day for 30 days
Right.
straight. Some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
especially if they have a gut and they've got some excess weight in the midsection, like they'll be eliminating. We call it elimination. They'll be eliminating every single day. But in a short fast like that, and if a person isn't overweight, they might stop going to the bathroom after about 3 days. And if they're going to go for 7 days, that break in digestion will allow their body to like do a little bit of regeneration, at least in terms of the stomach and in the intestines, a little bit of cellular repair, because those organs can have a rest. But you're not going to get
Right.
deeper into the other organs of the body or deeper into the tissues or this, all of the espoused benefits that people are talking about in terms of cellular autophagy. I mean, that's the big one. We want to get to, and actually, and then more spiritually
So,
speaking as well. Sorry, I'll just we start to unlock our DNA. We start to
right.
become crystalline, and that's
Yeah.
that's the that's the magic here. That's the magic. That's the winning ticket. Is that we start to improve our consciousness so that we can access more of our multidimensional selves. So.
So do you know, so you don't feel if somebody's doing a 7 day fast that they're having any cellular autophagy benefits?
I'm not going to say any, but it's very minimal in comparison to
Okay.
an extended fast. Yeah, I mean, because
Extended fast for you would be what, 21 days at least?
over 7 days, I would say around 10 days, because we're in a state of full ketosis. Our body actually
Right.
like starts to cross over at about 10 or 11 days. That's
Right.
until
Okay.
until that marker, we're not even in a full state of ketosis yet. So the
Right.
benefits, it's just yeah, and you when you become more and more sensitive, and when you've been doing this for long enough, and your body starts to recognize the feelings of it all, you're
Hmm.
sensitive to the energies. Like you can feel that switch, and at that point, there's no more hunger, and you're just yeah, you're getting really really deep into the organs.
Cool. Okay. So could you just for the audience's benefit, just describe what happens with cellular autophagy.
That's a great question. I I am not a scientist, so I won't give you like a textbook definition that I'm reading off of my phone here to sound smart.
Yeah,
But what I can tell you is that the cellular autophagy is it's this they call it in Greek, it means self eat. So
right.
it's literally the process of your body going through and eating up all of the unhelpful proteins and pathogens and potentially even cancerous cells that are
Yep.
in different
Yep.
locations of the body. I mean, these things are in various locations, and our body will sometimes store them, oftentimes in fat cells. They'll encapsulate them in fat cells to protect us. And as we're
Mhm.
fasting, those fat cells get broken down, and then those foreign pathogens, even parasites, they'll die. So that autophagy process is the body eating. They say it's self-eating, but it goes beyond that. And
Right.
that's the truth that I've discovered is that it's not just eating your own tissue that's unhelpful. It's actually eating things that are trying to eat us, like things that are literally trying to consume us. And just to put a little point there for a little plug for veganism and also raw food is, there's so much talk, especially the community that I'm in. There's a lot of people on the carnivore diet, or keto diet, and they're eating
Right.
copious amounts of meat, and they're also struggling horribly with parasitic infestations, and also they're struggling with several other things. But what is it when you have the overgrowth of yeast? Forgetting the term right now. Maybe you have it at the tip of your tongue. Yeah,
Oh, I
everyone's always talking about it in healing circles. But anyway,
Candida.
candida. Yes, thank you. Yeah, candida overgrowth. And so they're starving themselves of any carbohydrates. But what they're missing the mark on is that by eating meat, you're actually creating an environment which these things thrive in.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like I don't have these issues, and people that are eating raw and hygienic lifestyles, we're not struggling with parasites. So
Mhm.
a little plug.
Mhm.
If you
No, no. Yeah,
sensing
yeah.
of parasites, yeah, consider giving up animal flesh and animal products in general, because it's also within dairy and eggs, and fish is so loaded with parasites. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially sushi.
Well, it's curious that you have a cuisine. I'm talking about a Japanese cuisine, right?
Yeah.
Where wasabi is added to the cuisine. Now, the reason that wasabi is part of the Japanese cuisine is that it kills parasites. That's why wasabi is part of it.
Of
So
course.
you'd have to question why you would be eating a diet where part of it is intended to kill the parasites that the diet is actually creating.
Oh my god, I love that. I'm gonna
Yeah,
remember that one.
it's sort of bizarre when you think
It
about it.
so is.
Um,
Yeah.
so I want to get into because every spiritual community or practice has incorporated fasting into their practices,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
pretty well around the world, no matter where you go. Historically, this is the case. So I wanted to preface this next segment of going into you talking or speaking or sharing about your spiritual awakening and that process and what happened and what is continuing to happen is I have a belief, and this is my own personal belief, that you can only ascend so far spiritually if you are not on a vegan, plant-based, or raw diet.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts with respect to that?
Well, I do, and I concur, and I agree with you. And it's something it's the sensitivity that's felt, and
Mhm.
I, okay, so
Well, I
one,
think just energetically and everything else, right? I mean,
yes,
how
yeah,
can your energy ascend if you're consuming something that's non-energetic?
yes, yeah, you're taking in depth to the body when you're eating,
Yeah.
di- you know, animal parts and their fluids and their eggs and secretions and flesh. Like you're literally taking in the energy of death, and this is why a lot of the cultures, especially in the East, are promoting at least a meat-free diet. I know in
Yep.
India they do still drink a lot of milk and eat a lot of dairy.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so there's a little bit of it's not like fully in alignment, but in my awareness, being in spiritual community for many years and being on this path, being a raw vegan also, I mean, there's definitely levels to it. Like the more high raw you are, or if you're all raw, it's a frequency shift. You're not going to be vibrating at the same high frequency if you're incorporating grains and different types of cooked food. So I want to emphasize that. But what I have come to find out in just being in touch with a lot of people that are still eating meat, that are on spiritual paths, they I feel it in them energetically. It's almost like they have this underlying aggression, and
Mm.
they're not settled in their being. They have this
Right.
this like almost like they want to fight in them, and I feel it on men and women. It's just the same. And people that are in this plant-based lifestyle, especially if they're raw, and especially if they've done fasting, there's so much inner peace and just like tranquility and just this feeling of euphoric energy. And when I first went vegan, I felt it, and then when I went raw, I felt it, and then when I started fasting, oh my god, I felt it. It's because you're literally raising the body's frequency, and that's at the physical, mental, emotional, metaphysical, and spiritual levels.
Right.
We have multiple bodies,
Yep.
and the last thing I'll say on that is a lot of people will make the argument in the spiritual community, and all these people that are eating meat, they think they need to ground. I hear it all the time. I need meat to ground, and I'm like, okay, there's two separate conversations here. One is grounding, and one is density. They're not the same thing. To bring
Right.
density into the body does not make you more grounded, because I
Right.
accomplish the same exact thing by eating fresh leafy greens. That grounds
Mm.
me instantaneously. But their bodies are not perceiving of that, because they're not able to perceive of the subtle energies. There's a subtle energy perception that they can't even access because their body
Mhm.
is with the density. So
Yeah. Well, I agree 100%. And we are a frequency being. I
yeah,
mean, our makeup is energetic, and we're a frequency being for sure. So,
yes.
um, so which all leads into uh, talking about you sharing about your spiritual journey and this spiritual awakening that you have had and are within.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good lead-in. So I can share. My journey began. It goes hand in hand with the purification of the body through changing my diet and beginning fasting. I started my yogic journey, and I haven't been doing yoga as long as you. You have a few years on me, but about 15 years I've been doing yoga,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, about half of what you've done. So major respect. But yeah, I started my yogic journey, and that was I never was religious before I began dabbling into
Mhm.
yoga, and I got really into asana and meditation, and I went to yoga teacher training, and I did that whole thing. But I wasn't religious before I began that, so for me it was like my first real experience of experiencing something that was bigger than myself, and that it wasn't just about this 3D reality, and it opened me up in many, many ways. And I'm very grateful to this day that I wasn't brainwashed,
Mm.
with the religious perspective, because a lot of people, they get lost in that, and then they develop a resistance to even spirituality, to even speaking about God, or even speaking about this more energetic expression that we are. So I had no resistance. It was all self-led. And yeah, what really brought about the deepening for me, though, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is the water fasting combined with the raw food. Because
Okay.
my body became so purified in that way, that I went through a full ascension process. And the way that I understand it, and in my own lived experience, and then talking to other healers and people that I've worked with that are on the shamanic path, and also in mystery school settings. I've had some pretty high level conversations, and I've worked with some amazing people afterwards to essentially understand what I went through. Because we can go
Mhm.
through these incredible things, but if we don't have the framework of knowledge to bring it into
Right.
perspective, it's like it's just like a swirl. So I did some uncovering and investigation after I went through everything, and in my own direct lived experience. And it's getting a little bit sunny, so hopefully you guys, I'm not too bright here, but it's nice. But in that discovery, a full awakening is when we actually go and we merge with all of existence, when we completely surrender, which is surrendering oneself to the feminine. It's surrendering to, if you think about what's out there beyond this earth, it's mostly empty space. And we are mostly empty space, and it's creation is coming from that. It's coming from that nothingness. It's being born from the infinite abyss that is just it's just total darkness. And I had the opportunity to not only be there for a very, very long time, but to feel myself literally be completely dissolved into it. And I was fully present for that experience, like down to the atomic cellular level. I completely lost any sense of self, my mind, my body, my past experiences. I merged with all. And so that's the full journey of the soul. And yeah, I'm here now to speak about it because my soul decided to come back. It made the decision that it wanted to be embodied in a loving form again, to be an expression of love. And so I chose to be here as an embodiment of love, to give, to receive, to be, to express love.
So, what was the, if you're cool with this, what was the process for you?
That process involved the physical death.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was, I like I had
And
alluded.
where were you at that time?
Yeah, it's a good question. It happened twice
Okay.
in this 3D Earth realm, but I've been through many deaths also in other realms, and there's been other experiences that of living in the future as well, with all the time traveling that I've done. But in this 3D Earth, in my 30 something years of being on the planet, I went through two major death experiences. And the second one I went through was when I went and merged with all of creation into the void of existence. And I was in Israel. I was not in Israel. I was in Costa Rica, in San Jose, and I had just completed my 21-day water fast with Lauren, and I did my refeed, and I was on my way back to the U.S. and I passed away in a hotel room. And yeah,
And so when you say you passed away for, like, what was the time, like, how long did you pass away for, I guess is the question.
I can't.
And
Yeah, good.
I mean, generally speaking, I don't know if you can put a time to it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, what was what was the process of that,
Mm-hmm.
of being in that state, and what was the process of coming back?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. You're a fantastic interviewer, I must say. You have really wonderful questions, and you're so present
Thank
with
you.
me. I am really enjoying this experience.
Well,
Um,
me too. Thanks so
yeah,
much.
yeah. I feel safe. It's good to share that.
Well,
So
thank
anyone who
you. I
wants to do
appreciate
an
it.
interview with Michael, I highly recommend it. um, so thank you. Yeah, when I passed away in San Jose, it I can't know for sure. It was in the middle of the night, and
Mhm.
I also woke up in the middle of the night, and I was missing. I went missing for 2 days, but when I went through that death experience, we're speaking about things at the quantum level. Okay,
Right.
it's very metaphysical. So I was dying. I was dissolving for I just the only I can just say billions of years because I literally was exploding. I was the center of the Big Bang, but I was all of these explosions of light, and I went back to the birth of creation, and I never thought I'd be back here again. Like I thought I was done. Like it was like so, and I mean, if yeah, the level of PTSD that I came back with, and the amount of trauma, and just like I'm surprised I'm not locked up in the mental ward. Like it's amazing how I've been able to regenerate myself afterwards. But it was intense, Michael. It was super intense. But it was a matter of probably a few hours that I was in that
Okay.
experience, and
Yeah.
yeah, I collapsed on the tiled floor of the hotel room that I was in with no one there around
Right.
me to save me. And then yeah, I was actually wandering the streets of San Jose. I left my room supposedly in the middle of the night, but in my I wasn't in this reality as we know it. I was in some other alternate dimension, and
Right.
and my memory of it is very very different than what was told to me afterwards of the people that I came across that helped reunite me with my partner who was he when I didn't get off the plane in Portland, Oregon, he boarded a plane and flew here searching for me, and there were people looking for me because I was literally missing for 2 days, and I was just
Okay.
walking, you know. But
Wow.
I wasn't in a reality where there were any other humans. I was
Right.
in the future. I was walking
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
streets of San Jose when buildings literally were like most of them were crumbled like rubble, and there was
Mhm.
the sky was orange, and there was no animal life. There were no plants. There was no grass. Like everything was toasted and burned and crumbled rubble, and I was that's where I was, and I wasn't just there for 2 days. I was there for weeks, at least 2 or 3 weeks. I have many memories of nights and days, and it was just wild, absolutely wild.
Now, did you have a sense of that being in the past or in the future?
In the future,
Okay, interesting.
yeah.
And um, was there a point, like, was there, how did, was there a choice you made to come back?
Yeah, the
Like,
choice.
was there kind of a pinnacle time that,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
face this, do I, stay where I am or do I come back to this,
yeah. And the
dimension?
choice it came before I was walking, way in the future on planet Earth after we destroy this place. Like humans destroy this place eventually, but I made that choice when I was still in this complete surrender to all of existence. That's when I made the choice. When I was
Right,
essentially
right.
stardust, and it was just it was my soul. It's like the way I describe it, or it's just like my higher heart knowing that I was meant to be back, and
Right.
because I mean it's beautiful to be merged with all, but oh my god, it's very lonely. Like
Yeah.
there's no other form of consciousness to interact with, and I mean if you talk about PTSD and isolation and breaking the psyche, I mean like
Right.
I went there, and all I wanted was just to be with people again, and in an experience where there's some other beings that are outside of myself to experience and share love,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my soul journey wasn't over yet. I mean, for a lot of people that die young, their soul, it's not the best thing for them because they're not complete in their journey, So
Right.
it was a huge blessing that my soul decided on its own.
Okay. Cool. And what was the re-entry like? Because
Oh,
now you have your partner who flew in, right?
yeah,
So at some point, there's several sort of reunitings here, right? There's you choosing to come back into this realm,
yeah,
and then there's a reintroduction to your partner having already had this experience, right?
yeah.
How did that all go?
Oh my god, it was intense. Okay, so I came back into my body, and my body was I came back into a body that wasn't that I had total kidney failure, and this was diagnosed
Okay.
in the hospital. Total kidney failure, liver failure, brain damage, and my heart literally stopped beating. So my
Wow.
consciousness was so powerful that I kept myself alive. And again, I was like that for 2 days, walking around like
Hmm.
this, and
Hmm.
I have all the memories of it, and eventually there was a point in my walking around in complete isolation. And I think I was just highly traumatized, and my soul needed to project myself into a space and place and time when I had no other inputs coming in that could further uh, traumatized me, and it was like a safety thing that I truly believe that I was protecting myself in that projection of where I was. But eventually, the desire to be around other souls came back. After a few weeks of walking alone, I wasn't eating anything, I wasn't drinking anything. I was just in this like, imagine just like a war victim, just like barely holding on in a body that's broken, walking around dazed. I don't even know what I looked like at that point. I mean, it's just such a strange thing. But I had this desire to be around other people, and when I had that desire, these two interdimensional beings literally manifested literally right in front of me. And they were the most magical beings I've ever seen. They were two black men that they appeared as black men that were transvestites with big curly afros, like sparkling and glowing with fishnets and high heels and makeup and beads and glamour and the most like from like a fairy tale. Like they literally came they out of nowhere. They came like out of a mirage towards me, and they're like, "Honey," and they were like speaking to me in this southern twang. Like it was just so absurd. They're like, "Honey, are you okay? What's wrong? Can we help you? Maybe we should call the police." And I'm like, "Oh no 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 no!" Like I knew. I was like, because I had already been a little bit persecuted. I didn't tell that part of the story, but I had already been persecuted by some beings that were trying to capture my soul. And so I knew. I was like, I don't want to deal with the authorities. So I said, no, 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 no. And then I kept walking. But eventually, I started to see signs of life. I saw a dog run by. I saw a little bit of grass here and there. And then all of a sudden, I started to see kids. Like, it was like the most innocent forms of life, like non-threatening forms of life coming towards me. Children and dogs and a little bit of nature. And then eventually, San Jose came back to life. And I was in a very, very crowded central location of San Jose in like this town square area. And several people came up to me, including police, trying to figure out what was going on with this woman. And eventually I was discovered by, and this is absurd, Michael, this is absolutely absurd, but I have a deeper awareness of the matrix system and government and what is going on in the world, because I come from a political science background. That's my background. And there's these liaison offices around the world of essentially U.S. government is everywhere, and Costa Rica is like another hub, and yep. these Costa Ricans that were undercover for working with an auto agency, a car rental agency. That was like their cover, but they literally were watching that part of the world. And yeah, I knew that because they told me later. They showed me their badges and they let me know. Because they were watching me for hours. And one of them came and got me. And yeah, he connected me. I had my phone on me somehow, and he got on my WhatsApp and he saw that I had all these messages from my partner and from my cab driver that dropped me off that was looking for me. And then he reconnected me with my partner. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was insane though. It's like, yeah, it's hard to imagine, but like they were literally wearing badges, like
really, wow.
Yeah, they work for the U.S. government, totally undercover, insane.
Bizarre. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's so much more to dive into with this, and hopefully we can do that in another segment with you. Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to congratulate you for sharing this, and because I think it's there's a courage in doing this. So I applaud your courage to share this. And I imagine you've told other people about this at this point in time. Did you receive any pushback about this?
No, not yet. And I'm brand new to it. My first exposure was an interview that I did with you know him as well, Blake Herrick, and so that was recent. Yeah. Like, I haven't spoken about this in any major way until just a couple months ago.
Well, I applaud your courage, and I applaud you sharing this. It's fascinating, and it's absolutely. I wouldn't say it's mind blowing. I think it's interesting. I think it confirms some of my own beliefs, which is always reassuring, right? In that sort of way. But I would certainly, because we're not going to have time to get into even more nitty gritty around this, which I would love to if you'd love to at
Yeah.
another time.
Oh, for
So I
sure.
think we'll
Let's make it
definitely do
happen.
another one. Yeah, absolutely. Um, but is there something you want to leave us with in terms of this episode with you that you think is important for people to recognize in the whole context of what we've spoken about? You know, a vegan lifestyle, a raw lifestyle, spiritual ascension, spirituality in general. Like to have, you know, I think the world is in a place where many people are devoid of any spiritual practice, period, right?
Yeah.
Which is part of the problem we're facing. So, is there something you want to leave us with before we sign off on this particular episode?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I would say that I don't want to leave anybody with like a negative taste or a sour taste in their mouth around fasting, around spirituality, raw foods, because that is not how I feel at all. And I am a person that has been through major tests and trials and major challenges in my journey of cleansing and purifying and elevating my consciousness and coming back to it with fresh eyes and this oomph in my step and deeper belief and I've fasted multiple times since I went through everything and learned everything properly. So it's like I don't want anyone to have a sense of fear around it.
Right.
Water fasting is innately safe. Like our body is
Yep.
literally designed like to heal itself through this process. Like it's
Right.
literally God's technology within us that we just have the opportunity to access it. So we don't need to have like fear around it. And you know, just to emphasize that my soul was like destined for this regardless. You know, I signed up for it. When we have experiences with death, it's literally written in the soul contracts. Like
Right.
I signed up for that before I even got here. You know, and because I'm meant to be a healer and a guide and helping the ascension process here on the planet. And I know that now. I've had all of those encounters with the higher dimensional beings, extraterrestrials, to essentially show me that, you know, over and over and
Yep.
over again. Like I'm on a big
Yep.
mission, you know, so I don't want anyone to walk away from this conversation in fear of these things, because there's nothing to fear, especially if you are doing your process with a coach or a guide or a facility,
Yep.
someone
Yep.
that's holding you in that space. I do not recommend going to AI for anything having to do with the healing of the physical body, because these things are controlled by dark entities. Like if we're not aware of that yet,
Yep.
it's the truth. There's
Yep.
a lot of darkness behind AI, so believe me, I've done some searches and I've gotten the most ridiculous information back from it, and I just like, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. So yeah, little point there.
Well, that's a topic for another episode.
Oh
So
my
that'd be great.
god,
That'd be great.
yeah,
Um,
the mind control.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen. First of all, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
I super appreciate it. I love your energy
Yes,
and
you too.
and sharing. And again, I applaud you on your courage for sharing your story. And I think I would love to go deeper into that in another episode.
Yeah.
Liana, you can find on Instagram, but I will have all her details in the notes below. And listen, I want to thank you so much for being part of this. It's been such a pleasure and a delight, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you. And I look
All
forward
right.
to it.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.